All right. Good evening. It is 6:30. If everyone could please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. Alrighty. Before moving on to item 1B, I would like to remind the public that guests are expected to act with civility and not interrupt this meeting. Anyone being disruptive, not necessarily just during the call to the public, but throughout the meeting will be asked to leave. We will not be handing out warnings. I think we're all adults here, and so I appreciate everyone following suit. Item 1B, consent agenda.
I move that the consent agenda for the December 18th, 2023 regular meeting be approved.
Support. Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Shaw. Any discussion? Hearing none. Mr. Gobolewski?
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw?
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Wendell?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, that motion passes. Moving on to item 1C, Superintendent's Report. Mr. Hughes?
Yes, thank you. Couple of things. I do want to recognize all of our parents and our students for supporting adoptive family. I think at last count, Megan, there was 85 families. Has that risen from 85? There's more? Okay. So the families, 85 plus families that we'll take care of through the efforts of this community at the holiday time. Lots of cereal and canned goods and food goods. Spent some time last week sorting through that, make sure it's all non-expired stuff. And then our students raised $2,354.82 through paying $1 to wear a hat, and also the high school had a drawing where the big draw was parking spots up closer to the high school. So thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald, for reserving those spots. Hopefully next year we can reserve them again for this particular event. So we do appreciate that. I also want to recognize our coaches and students that were our first ever esports team at Heartland High School. Our first ever try at it. They placed second in the state 2 weekends ago at Oakland University. They beat Detroit Catholic Central in the semifinals, and then unfortunately lost to Linden High School. Our neighbor here, Linden was last year's state champ, and we were runner-up for our first ever try at it. So congratulations to our students on the high school esports team. What a great opportunity for them. I'm going to get to the parent perception survey last. I'll go through that, but just an update to the board, and we have Matt here if there's any questions. A reminder that we needed to do an emergency repair over Christmas break on the main water line that feeds the whole high school. Last June, I believe, we found 2 cracks in the pipe. We did clamp them. We thought, great, this will hold for a while. By October, we had 4 more clamps. And so the pipe is deteriorating from the inside of the pipe. About 370 feet of pipe that has to be replaced, and they're going to do that over Christmas break with minimal effect on campus. We felt that we needed to do this because if the pipe were to break and crumble during the school year, being 2 weeks out of school or longer would not be a good thing. So if we can get the company in there now to do it, it just made sense. So we'll get that taken care of. We're also in the process of revamping the high school weight room. As you remember, you approved that project. I believe they'll be done painting it this week, start working on the new floor. The equipment is arriving as we speak and being put into the hallway outside of the weight room, so we're ready to put that together as we get into the new school year, so, or the second semester of the school year. So lots of work being done there. We also have a new hire to introduce, Mr. Howerton. It was passed in the consent agenda. Want to bring Mike up? Is he here yet? Or why don't I come back to it? I understand he's on US 23 coming south and left early, but is not moving very fast. So if he comes, I'll ask if I could have Mr. Howerton come up. So, the last piece of the superintendent report is I've been putting information out to the community, my community updates, on the parent perception survey for the 22-23 school year. And I'm gonna go through some of this information, and I would ask you to try to remember the first number I give you will be this year's feedback from parents. The second number I give you will be the number we got 2 years ago from parents. So after 2 years, we have this new survey data. And the way we use this data is each of the buildings gets their own data. Then I compile all that data into the district report. The buildings use that data to have conversations on staff with their teachers to say, here are the positives, here are the things that we probably need to be addressing. And then we're gonna move forward and address those issues on campus and build a plan around that. So that's how we use the data. And then from a different district perspective, we look at the data and we have conversations with our buildings to make sure we're addressing the areas that we're concerned about, right? So I see Mr. Fitzgerald shaking his head, yes, that's how it's done, so thank you. So this year, we have in this district 3,167 families that send students to our school district. Of those 3,167 families, 1,252 responded. That's about 39.5%. 39.5% is a pretty good number. Anytime in a survey, if you get 30%, you're doing really well. I talked with the township today. Heartland Township just got done doing their survey, and they're going to send the results along soon. They got 28%, and they're super happy with their 28% of respondents for the township on the questions they asked. So if you live in Heartland Township, you may have taken that survey as well for the township. So getting 39.5% of our families to respond tells us that's a great number. People are engaged and they're responding. And I always say this, if people don't respond, we assume they have no issues, that everything's going well and they have no reason to fill out the survey. So here are the numbers for this year's survey district-wide. Based on your experience with this school, the school that their children attend, what letter grade would you give it? This year, 95.4% of our parents gave their school an A or a B. 2 years ago, it was 91%. So definitely an improvement on what parents are saying about their school. Is your child a resident of the district? We do have 21% of the respondents are school of choice, which is about right. About 20% of our student body is school of choice students. So that makes sense. That number came out where it should be. Does your school promote academic success for your student? 94.3% strongly agree or agree versus 93% 2 years ago. So a slight uptick there. The school treats my student with respect. 95.9% of parents say that the school treats their child with respect, agree or strongly agree versus 95% 2 years ago. The school keeps me well informed about school activities and my child's progress. 89.6% strongly agree or agree versus 85% 2 years ago. The school is an inviting and welcoming place for my student to learn. 94.1% strongly agree or agree versus 90% 2 years ago. The school communicates the importance of respecting all cultural beliefs and practices. 79.8%, 72% 2 years ago. So it's good for us as a school district as we work through some of the issues we've been working through, that we continue to work on. You know, students have to see themselves in the curriculum. Students have to see themselves in what they're learning. And that means that we have to be sensitive to have materials and resources that they see themselves in. And so that's the importance of that question. The school provides instructional materials that reflect my child's culture, ethnicity, and identity. Going a little deeper, 72.1% strongly agree or agree versus 66% 2 years ago. Again, it's good to see that we're seeing some improvement in that area. The big one, and I do appreciate the board's work on this, and certainly appreciate Megan, President Glaybach's work on all the homework you did on this. You bring safety officers to our schools. The school is a safe place for my child. 94.1% strongly agree or agree versus 87% 2 years ago. I value my school's effort at teaching my students social emotional skills. 90.4% strongly agree or agree versus 81% 2 years ago. The school encourages me to be an active partner with the school in educating my child. 87.5% versus 81% 2 years ago, strongly agree or agree. The school has adults that care about my student. 93.8% strongly agree or agree versus 92% 2 years ago. The school clearly teaches behavior expectations to students. 88.1% strongly agree or agree versus 84% 2 years ago. That's something we're always working on. My child has experienced bullying. 26.9% of parents responded that they agree or strongly agree that their child has experienced bullying in schools. Let's not, this is one that we all have to continue to work on. 26.9% strongly agree or agree that their child has been bullied versus 34.3% 2 years ago. And one of the things that we talk about this is one of the things that we're all working on in the district. One of the things we have to do is educate people on what bullying really is, right? There can be mean behavior. Some people would say that's bullying. There can be rude behavior. Billy said this to my son, that's rude, but not necessarily bullying. What is bullying? We have to do a better job of making sure we're educating everybody, all parents, all students on what bullying is and what that looks like, and to make sure, of course, that they report it, because if we don't know about it, we can't do anything about it, right? We have to know about it. And sometimes that's the biggest detriment. My student has experienced racial or ethnic conflict amongst students in this school. 5.7% of parents believe strongly or agree that their student has experienced some racial and ethnic conflict in school versus 8% 2 years ago. So we're seeing some movement in that direction to make sure that we're addressing the issues in our school district for those students that, again, might feel like they're treated with disrespect and discrimination and whatnot in our school buildings, which should never happen. You can find these results on the Heartland Schools website by going to the bottom of the website page under the superintendent update. And at the bottom of that, when you click on it, you'll see additional resources, and this whole report is sitting there for anybody to look at. And certainly we welcome you to look at it. So I think at the end of the day, what a great report from our parents on their how they view our school, how they perceive our school, and what we're doing for their children. And so I was very happy to see these numbers come out the way they did. And like I said, each of the building principals has their own survey in their building, and they're working off of that as well. So it was really nice to see this report come out with a strong consideration from parents. Yep. Tony, why don't you come up with Mike? So then we'll finish out the superintendent's report.
Good evening, everybody. Again, I want to echo what Superintendent Hughes said about thanking you for providing our SRO at Oak Creek. We love having Deputy Keenan in the building. It's a great part of our building and our Oak Creek community. So thank you for that. It's my pleasure to introduce Mike Shively. Mike is going to be taking over for an amazing teacher himself. Mrs. Karen Concha is retiring, so I wanted to thank her for all the work she's done over the years here in Heartland, and we're going to miss her. But Mike is an outstanding candidate. This is a special education position, and Mrs. Concha this time teaches a number of co-taught, team taught classes. Mr. Shively has 8 years of experience. He spent 3 years in Southfield as a resource room teacher. The last 5 years, he has been at Kingsbury Country Day School in Oxford, teaching 6th, 7th, and 8th grade co-taught classes in ELA and math. And in addition to a CI special ed endorsement, he has a math endorsement as well. So I think he's a great fit. And talking to folks that have worked with him and those that know him, the biggest kudos for Mike was the fact that he connects with kids. And that's what we need. And that's what we look for here in Heartland, those relationships, those connections. In addition to his background with teaching, I think he told us he has 32 on your caseload right now, I think. So he's got quite a load where he's at. And we're really excited to have him here, though. Thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to starting.
Awesome. So Mike, you can leave and start that drive back. Lucky you. All right. Thank you very much. That so ends the superintendent's report.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Item 1D, call to the public. I would like to remind folks that speakers are asked to express themselves in a civil manner with due respect for the dignity and privacy of others who may be affected by your comments. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. At 2 minutes and 30 seconds, I will raise my yellow folder, just so that you are aware and can finish up your thoughts. First up, I have Jason Clinton.
Good evening. My name is Jason Clinton, and I am a very proud trans man. And I am here despite the fact that I am not actually a part of this community. I actually live about an hour away from here, but I came here because I wanted to voice my perspective as a trans person here, because I know that that is an issue that is on the books right now. For those of you who don't know what a trans man is a person who was born with the body of a woman and now has a body that reflects how they feel, how they act, who they are. I began my transition at the age of 22 as a full-grown adult, but even as an adult, I was harassed by my coworkers, by my boss, to the point where I no longer felt comfortable using the bathroom at my work. I would dehydrate myself until my lunch break so that I wouldn't have to use the bathroom because I was afraid of being attacked in the bathroom, either in the men's bathroom or the women's bathroom. It didn't matter which one I went into, I was afraid of either. And so I would wait until my lunch break and I would make a half-hour long drive back to my house to use the bathroom. I wouldn't even eat anything. And then I would take the half-hour drive back to my work so that I could get back to work and I wouldn't eat anything. I would barely drink anything throughout the day. This is how my experience as a full-grown adult. Now, I can't imagine what that must have been like for a 14-year-old, for a 15-year-old, for a child. Because you don't have the opportunity to go home. You have to stay in the confines of that school, and you have to worry about the harassment that you might get from your fellow students, or even worse, your teachers. I've heard some people say that the quote-unquote bathroom issue is regarding protecting kids. But one of the things that I always ask is, what are you protecting kids from? Are you protecting kids from the health issues that might come from not using the bathroom for days on end? Or the issues that might come from being denied your identity by your fellow students, by your teachers, by people who are supposed to be respecting you? Those are things that trans people have to actually deal with, not just people who are in school, but just people in their everyday lives. Thank you. And I just want to say that I am not the only person who wanted to come out here today. I asked my friends to come out here today as well, but many of them were afraid to come to Howell. because of Howell's reputation, and its history and its association with hate groups. And if you want to change that reputation, and I don't believe that everyone in your community is a hateful person. If you want to change that reputation, you have the opportunity to change that reputation now. But you have to make the effort.
Jason, you're on time.
Thank you.
Next, I have Halligan. I'm so sorry, I butchered that one.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kel, this is Zoe, and we're here today to share with you our perspectives as healthcare workers who support queer and transgender youth. As the Board of Education, your job is to maintain a safe and enriching learning environment for all of your students. An environment that polices students' gender, down to speculating about their genitals, which I heard at the meeting last time, is inherently unsafe for students. Meanwhile, trans kids are the ones who are accused of making bathrooms unsafe. As a nurse and someone who works within the trans community, I'd like to speak about student safety. Trans and gender nonconforming youth disproportionately experience violence, discrimination, and bullying. Over a third of trans youth report that they have personally been physically threatened or harmed due to their gender identity. Entering any public space, including a bathroom, as a trans kid is a risk. Not because they're trans, but because our communities can be cruel. Giving these kids the ability to make a simple choice for themselves, where to pee, it's not a threat to anyone. It's a basic human dignity. Cisgender students who are uncomfortable with sharing a bathroom, they're not the ones under threat. They're experiencing something that we should all learn at school, which is how to get along with people who are different from us and how to show them respect. Trans kids are not a political prop, they're kids. They want to learn and be supported the same as their peers, and they deserve to do so without being called predators by adults. Give them that respect, focus your efforts on creating a welcoming and nurturing environment for all your students to thrive, and you'll be doing your job. Thank you.
Next, I have Angela Yarber.
Good evening, I'm Angela Yarber. I'd like to remind the board and the superintendent that clarification of Mr. Hughes's weekly update from November the 8th regarding the Department of Justice is still needed. The public has a right to clarity about the Department of Justice's role in the school district. I would also like to ask the board to create a bathroom and locker room policy. When I looked online to find one, I could not. If there is no policy, then the school board is acting without authority and letting opposite biological sexes use the same bathroom and locker rooms. This is unsafe and unsustainable, and in fact is the subject of a lawsuit in Vicksburg, Michigan. I want to know, what is the school doing to protect students' safety in the bathrooms and locker rooms? It's a question I hope you can answer.
Next, I have Sydney Hobart.
Good evening. As a former student athlete, I understand the trepidation that students have regarding the scrutiny and vulnerability they feel amongst their peers. Being in high school, to be blunt, sucks. Fears and insecurities pervade the lives of students, and it is a time during which they are discovering what it means to be a member of society. This is as true of students who do not identify as trans as those who do. It is, however, a matter of fact that transgender students are not fundamentally more dangerous to their peers than the average. Transgender students are 4 times more likely than non-transgender students to experience harassment. 43% of transgender students on average have experienced bullying, where the average amongst all students here in the school district was indicated as 26.9%. 22% of LGBTQ students have reported suicidal ideation as a result of bullying, a statistic that decreases precipitously when students report having supportive parents, friends, and community. This issue, in fact, does not only affect transgender students. In many cases, non-transgender students in places which have heavily restrictive anti-trans policies have reported being harassed for merely being suspected of being trans, either due to typical high school immaturity or based on face and body structure. This has led to students, regardless of gender, being made to prove their gender to teachers or coaches or what have you, sometimes without their parents' consent, often even when they themselves are not even transgender. This, regardless of pretense, is unacceptable to me and should, in fact, be unacceptable to any parent, student, or member of the community. Thank you, and if anyone has any questions, I will be happy to answer them after adjournment.
Ellen Nickerton?
All right, good afternoon, everyone. Well, I guess it's way past that. Thank you for letting me speak. I wanted to talk about this whole bathroom issue that for some reason certain people have decided to make an issue. As others earlier have said, this will cause harm to many people. Not just trans people, it'll cause harm to cis kids. And in fact, one thing I've learned recently is that, you know, some of this harm has come from people such as the wife of one of the school board members. I know that there is one kid who is not trans, who keeps getting misgendered repeatedly by Mr. Gogolewski's wife, which is not acceptable. And we expect people like that to be able to police bathrooms.
Point of order.
Sorry, I did, okay. Right, we expect people like that to be able to police bathrooms. You really think you can be able to clock anyone? You really think so? Because, okay, maybe you can look at me and say, oh, I can obviously tell. But you know, you look at a kid, my mom used to get mistaken for a boy all the time. How do you think she would feel if when she walked into the bathroom, there were kids accusing her of being in the wrong bathroom? How do you think she would feel about that? Like, this policy that you're trying to put in, it's not a good idea. It is a terrible, terrible idea. And not only that, we have one person out there who spoke last month, and afterwards I don't even like using the term spread misinformation here. I think we need to stop sugarcoating it. She lied. She lied and caused a teacher to have to go on mental health leave. This is not okay. This is not okay what you're doing. Thank you.
Aaron McKenna?
Excuse me. I'd like to say if somebody wants to address me, that's fine. But to address a family member of mine, no. Not happening.
Aaron McKenna?
Members of the board, members of the school board, teachers, administrators, and community members. Thank you for your time this evening. I'm a member of this community with 2 children in Heartland schools. I am here to voice my support for continuing to allow students to utilize restrooms and locker room facilities that align with their gender identity. This policy follows state and federal laws prohibiting discrimination based on gender identity. As a district, following the law is imperative, regardless of personal beliefs. I urge this board to consult with lawyers to make lawful, informed decisions. I've heard arguments that while we must ensure vulnerable students' safety, it shouldn't come at the expense of others' comfort. However, research clearly shows allowing transgender students to use affirming facilities does not threaten others' safeties. Multiple studies have found no link between inclusive bathroom policies and increased incidents, and banning transgender students from certain bathrooms often severely compromise their health, safety, and ability to thrive. As for the discomfort, research shows this often stems from a lack of understanding rather than safety. Principles of equity demand we protect the basic rights and dignity of marginalized students despite momentary discomfort for some. With communication and education, schools can facilitate greater acceptance over time rather than restricting vital access. Evidence shows inclusive policies protect all students while upholding the critical needs of transgender and non-binary youth. Despite discomfort, some may feel protecting the most psychologically vulnerable students should remain our priority, a priority backed by research and ethics. This is not an issue of stirring the pot, yet those who came forward opposing this policy did precisely that by fabricating controversy around protection that are working well. Heartland schools specifically, there have been no incidences related to our policies of allowing students to use facilities aligning with their gender identity. Rather, this has provided fair, dignified, and equal learning environments where every student feels safe, welcomed, and affirmed. Lastly, it is deeply concerning to hear of teachers needing FMLA leave due to harassment from those stirring the pot and opposing this policy. While I do not have the details around this exact situations, teachers deserve support against discrimination, backlash, and being harassed by community members with strong biased beliefs. I hope this administration is backing our teachers. Thank you for your time. I welcome any questions and discussions moving forward positively together. All right, Greg.
Evening. My daughter became a teacher not for money and glory, but because of her love of books, which was recognized and encouraged by wonderful Heartland teachers. She discovered that through books, she could begin to satisfy her natural curiosity and thirst for knowledge. Books opened her up to an amazing world around her, and she wanted to share her knowledge and her enthusiasm. I believe this is a shared experience by many of our dedicated teachers. So you can imagine my dismay when some of my local social media feeds started showing a vicious attack on a Heartland teacher by another community member over something that had no effect on them. Or when I attend board meetings where some members partake in name calling and acting in unprofessional manner, where political culture wars seem to take precedence over the education of our children and retention and recruitment of quality teachers. I hear discussion on solutions in search of a problem, where some community members make cruel and judgmental comments about our marginalized students. All of this leads me to believe that as an adult, we need a reminder that the golden rule is something that we should be following, not just teaching our children. And also as a reminder that the children are watching and listening, I would like to read the poem by Dorothy Law Nolte, PhD, called Children Live What They Learn. If children live with criticism, they learn to criticize, but they learn to condemn. If children live with hostility, they learn to fight. If children live with fear, they learn to be apprehensive. If children live with pity, they learn to feel sorry for themselves. If children live with ridicule, they learn to feel shy. If children live with jealousy, they learn to feel envy. If children live with shame, they learn to feel guilty. If children live with encouragement, they learn confidence. If children live with tolerance, they learn patience. If children live with praise, they learn appreciation. If children live with acceptance, they learn to love. If children live with approval, they learn to like themselves. If children live with recognition, they learn it is good to have a goal. If children live with sharing, they learn generosity. If children live with honesty, they learn truthfulness. If children live with fairness, they learn justice. If children live with kindness and consideration, they learn respect. If children live with security, they learn to have faith in themselves and those about them. If children live with friendliness, they learn the world is a nice place in which to live. The children are watching, the children are listening. We need to do better for them. Thank you.
Nikki Bonevich.
I'm a mom of 2 transgender children. And I love them very much. May I ask the board a question? How many of you know a transgender individual personally? Any of you? Okay. I suggest you meet one, and then I suggest you meet another, because they're not all the same. They're just like you and me. They're all different. And that's a good thing, right? I see words around this room: empathy, empowerment, serve, reason, respect, responsibility. And I really hope that this district takes that into account, that those are really important, strong words, and having empathy for these children that are trying to figure these things out and going through such a difficult time and such a difficult thing of getting bullied, right, every day by people that once were their friends possibly, but the moment they came out, suddenly they weren't. These kids are scared and they just need love and support and respect, right? They are the minority and we should be here to protect them. And that's what I hope that the district will do for these children. I would hate to think of someone harming my child because they were different. Now, if my child harmed someone, I would be appalled. I would be utterly appalled. But if my child was harmed, I would be so angry and so upset. And just because they aren't something that you've ever been exposed to, that doesn't seem right. So please consider that. And I think that the other reasons that people have given here today are far more powerful. I mean, there's clearly legal reasons to consider this, right? You have the law of the state that is telling you you need to respect these children's rights. So it's not just my heart that breaks, okay? So just think of that. These children aren't here to harm your kids. They just want to get through the day. They just want to try and enjoy life just like your kid does. That's all they want. I'm done. Thank you.
Jessica.
Good evening. So first of all, I wanted to say thank you to President Gladbach, everybody on the board, all the members of the community that worked on the adoptive family stuff. I know Mr. Hughes hit on it, but I walked by the community ed office last week and it looked like Santa's workshop. I mean, just piles and piles, and I'm glad to see how generous the community is and how many families can be helped this Christmas and how many kids are going to come back to school after the break and be proud of the new clothes and the new shoes and how great of a Christmas they had. So thank you to all of you for that. I just want to make one comment. You're reviewing some purchasing policies this evening, and for the most part, I think it looks good. I'm going to recommend one addition, and that's to make freedom of speech protections for your vendors. I know there's been a lot of talk about freedom of speech over the last year. There's people in this room on both sides of the aisle and everywhere in between. And I would hate to think that any one of them may lose business with the school district because they come up here and speak on something, or they speak in social media about something. So I think it would be important for the district to make a stance that that a person's personal speech would not affect their contract with the school district. So that's the only recommendation I'm going to make. I'd like you to consider it. And I thank you very much for your time and for your service.
Moving on to item 1E, committee and building reports. I'll start to the right of me. Do any of you have committee or building reports to share?
Yes.
Go ahead.
All right, thanks, President Blaylock. Just a couple notes. I don't see any of my farms friends here today, but I just again appreciate the time that Principal Cheney and Assistant Principal Brisky afford me when I do show up. Just to highlight a couple positives with the Heartland Optimist Club, two different things. There was over 300 cereal boxes that they had raised. It's great. Also had over $500 for the adoptive family on behalf of the farm's family and students. So great job to those folks. I did get a chance to go to the 6th grade choir concert that was actually here in this building, directed by Mrs. Stolman, and I think the 6th grade students did a fantastic job. So just want to give my accolades to them. Last week, the kids had the Santa shop. I know there are lots of kids that got to participate getting gifts for mom and dad and all their family and friends. It's a good way to teach the kids to be giving. So I think it's a great event that the school does. This week we have Spirit Week. There's upcoming band concert here on the 20th of this week. And then last but not least, there are some, I guess, auditions for the high school that have been extended to farms. So any farm students who want to participate in Mary Poppins, I think that'd be a great opportunity. And that ends my report.
Not this month, next month I will. No, I will next month, as the senior center only meets every other month. And Mr. Howerton and I had to reschedule our meeting, so I'll have updates from the middle school too.
Just a big shout out to Jacob Titus, who did a real good job on the National Geography Day. And he has a chance to go to the regionals and possibly state and national championships. So that's pretty impressive for an 8th grader.
All right.
You know, Megan, I do have I do want to talk about the safety committee. So, because I think that a statement needs to be made. I want to make a statement because at the safety committee this week, I submitted a bathroom and a parental rights policy that we're working on right now. And a lot of passionate people spoke. We hear you loud and clear. And I just want to set things straight that all kids are on a journey. All kids feel insecure. All kids have challenges. All kids have problems at home. All kids, maybe they don't, but maybe they have something, you know, they're not really good at school, but all children are on a journey. So we do as a board have to address all children And one of the reasons why I want to put a bathroom policy in place is because many of the people that spoke here said that their family members or loved ones, or they themselves have been victims when using restrooms that, you know, they identify with. So we need to protect you as well. My biggest thing is that I feel like it needs to be said that allowing children to use the opposite bathroom is confusing to kids, but that's not the worst part about it. The worst part about it is not the transgender people or children. It's the people that may want to need or may want to cause harm to children. So there's still creeps out there. There are creeps out there. And while you guys are all saying that, you know, it's not a transgender child, no, we're not saying that it's a transgender child, it's opening up the door for things. But my biggest thing that I said at the safety committee is girls in bathrooms need to be protected. And when a girl is in a stall, a boy walks in, clears his throat, first time she hears it, she's gonna feel shocked. She's not gonna know what to do. She's not gonna know what to think because, you know, it's fearful. It's supposed to be a private female space, but hearing a boy's voice or, you know, a deeper voice, just, you know, makes them scared. Then they're told you have to accept that. The next time somebody walks in.
Will you stick to the safety committee?
I'm sorry?
Will you stick to the safety committee report out?
I would like to get this point out, though. It's important to me.
Stick to the safety committee business.
I am, and I said this in safety committee meeting, so I'm repeating what I said in the safety committee meeting. And I'd like to get this out to address some things. So, we're dismantling the girl's ability to detect danger. And that's my biggest problem. We're not allowing our girls to feel danger if a male walks in the bathroom with them. And that's what I needed to say. Thank you.
Item 2A, 24-25 high school curriculum guide.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent and the assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, approves the 2024-2025 high school curriculum guide as presented.
Support. Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mr. Costa. Any discussion?
Just want to thank Mr. Fitzgerald for his time earlier this week to talk about some of the upcoming changes in the curriculum. Very helpful. Thank you for that. And then also something that kind of came up in our discussion to share with the board is that, you know, we've got a lot of different honor cords for, you know, math, science, and even journalism. I think one additional cord that we could consider would be to have one for the students that meet similar credentials for some of the CTE courses. I think in addition to their normal certification that they get at the end of completing the courses or graduation, I think we should highlight their accomplishments when they actually graduate. So I just wanted to share that with the board. I don't know what would need to happen necessarily to consider that, or if it's something that Mr. Fitzgerald could consider on his own, but anyway, just wanted to share that with the team. Thanks.
Thanks, sir. That's great. Thanks. That for you, Dave, for the courts that
It's James.
okay, we'll follow up with that. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogolewski?
What is the question?
Voting on the motion.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw? Yes. Mrs. Coleman?
Yes.
Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Fondio?
Yes.
And I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 2B, international travel proposal for summer of 2025. I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent, approves the international travel proposal as presented. Motion by Mrs. Shaw, support by Mrs. Coleman. Any discussion?
Not discussion, but I know we mentioned last time. I think it's an amazing opportunity that our kids are getting out of this. So I'm just so happy that all in the second year, I'm assuming that we're going to for this because like I said, it's just wonderful that the Heartland kids get this opportunity. So.
Can we just remember in summer, end of summer 24, to have the team that's going this summer to come back and maybe share during the superintendent update. Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogolewski,
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw? Yes. Mrs. Coleman? Yes. Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondell? Yes. I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 2C, bond package approval.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the Superintendent and Director of Operations, approve bond big packages number 10D, number 10H, and number 9 as presented.
Motion by Mr. Costa, support by Mrs. Coleman. Any discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Gogolewski.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw? Yes. Mrs. Coleman? Yes. Mr. Costa?
Yes.
Mr. Keller?
Yes.
Mrs. Blondell? Yes. And I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 2D, automotive lift purchase.
I move that the Board of Education, upon the recommendation of the superintendent and the chief financial officer, approves the automotive lift purchase as presented.
Support. Motion by Mrs. Coleman, support by Mrs. Shaw. Any discussion?
Yeah, I'm very happy to see this go through. This is really, really important for our students that go into trades and such. So I hope everyone goes along with this.
I would also like to say, as a son who is currently in automotive too, this will be a great addition to what they already have, and Mr. Trahey, this will be another avenue for him to add some of the things that these students can do, and my son is a car guy, has really enjoyed being in this class. I know he, may not be able to get to use these new items, but it's fantastic that we got these extra funds just to add another thing to our student body that they have access to, so I'm very excited. Awesome. There was a previous student that noted how much money he had saved fixing his own car. Yeah. Through taking that class versus utilizing like a shop. Any further discussion?
Just a general question maybe for Rachel. So I understand that we're selling one of the existing lifts that's there to make room for the new one.
That's correct.
Does that money just go back into the general fund, or how do we line that up?
Yes, that's.
Okay, thank you.
All right, Mr. Gogolewski.
Yes.
Mrs. Shaw.
Yes.
Mrs. Coleman. Yes. Mr. Costa.
Yes.
Mr. Keller.
Yes.
Mrs. Blondell.
Yes.
I'm a yes, that motion passes. Item 3A, we have item 3A, discussion items. Revised policies number 6320, 2370.01, and 8531. To my understanding, 2 of these are Neola updates, and 1, Ms. Rachel has some information for us. I said Ms. Rachel and didn't realize that there's a show called Ms. Rachel.
All good. So the policy updates I provided to you for 6320 purchasing really is just to help clarify our current purchasing policy. The biggest issue with it right now is it doesn't differentiate between procurement for construction and renovation of different buildings versus procurement of supplies and materials. 2 separate standards, 2 separate laws apply to both. And so our current policy is kind of confusing, mostly because it doesn't necessarily clarify when it's appropriate to use cooperative bidding and cooperative purchasing. And that is the main issue here. You cannot use cooperative purchasing when procuring for construction projects. So, our policy didn't really clarify that very well. And so these changes here to help make that clarification under what's allowable under current law.
Want me to talk about the other 2 real quick? So the online blended learning policy 237001. This just basically allows the district to switch to online learning if necessary. For instance, if the pipe would have broke at the high school, we had to be out for 2 weeks. Instead of losing FTE count, we could have moved swiftly to online learning for those 2 weeks if necessary to keep education moving forward, and this allows us that 15-day exemption. So that's really the heart of this policy, is to give us some flexibility in the event of So that's what that policy is. And then the free and reduced price meal policy, again, it's just making sure that we're statutorily correct in this movement. We still, one of the things, as you read the policies, it's really for the free and reduced lunch. Even though lunches and breakfast and lunch is free this year, the fact is the state still does require us to try to get the free and reduced lunch forms filled out so that we have an accurate account of who's actually qualifying under the socioeconomic status. If it goes away next year, this policy obviously is even more important. So that's what these two policies are, just to keep us legal.
Anyone have any questions or anything that you need on these policies before next board meeting? You don't have to ask yet now. Excuse me, sorry, talking this whole time, but when you're on mute on Zoom. If anyone has any questions, please reach out before the next board meeting on these policies. If you need clarification from Rachel on how we bucket our items, or what this does kind of for our purchasing. Anyone have any outstanding questions on these policies right now? Okay. Moving on to item 4A, future meetings, January 15th, 2024, right here, 6:30 p.m. Moving on to item 4B, any informational items? Does anyone to my right have any informational items to share with the team?
Not an informational item, but it is the end of the first semester, so I wish all of our HCS employees they will deserve 2-week break. So.
Can I say something about that? Because I'll remind the public in my weekly update this week, the teachers and the administrators are on break. So please hold your correspondence, your reach outs during that 2-week time. Let them have some time with their family. Let them have some time to settle down so the rest can come back for us a long second semester. Thank you.
I would just like to just say a quick, I know in our consent agenda, we did kind of skip over the recognition of tenure. But I just wanted to congratulate all of those teachers and staff that, are being recognized for tenure. Without them, we can't do what we do. And I think it's important that our actions and words at this board table and outside of this boardroom make sure that we support the people who make Heartland Schools what it is, educationally, emotionally for our students. So congratulations to everyone, and also enjoy your 2-week well-deserved break.
Yeah, certainly want to give a shout out to those teachers who have done a remarkably good job. We do appreciate teachers, and as long as teachers teach their curriculum, I'm all for them. So, thank you.
I do want to thank the public. We have over 300 students as part of the Adopted Family Program this year. It would not be possible without the support of our community. Whether that be donating a jar of peanut butter, to adopting a family, to passing me by and not recognizing me in sweats in Target because this is what I do to shop for kids. I appreciate that. But it really takes a village, and that's what this village is. We have sports teams, we have academic teams, Boy Scout groups, you name it that is involved. And if you just need a little bit of spirit, walk past the community education office. Carol, Stephanie, and Stacy in there do an amazing job to keep things straight for when we need to kind of deliver to our students. And so I just want to thank you. I want to thank all the administration who took on extra tasks to have drives within your schools to really promote it. Our National Junior Honor Society, who really leads kind of the efforts at the high school and does all of our food sorting for us and essentially kind of shops for these families from a food standpoint. And so I really appreciate it. It would not be possible with all of that. And it's, for those of you who are looking for a little gratitude this season, I think if you have food on the table, a roof over your head, and you have your health and your family, or your friends or whatever that is, be grateful because not everyone in this community has that. And so take a look internally and I wish everyone a happy holiday.